This is immediately super laughable. You know how nerd science be like, he'll explain a certain situation and then he'll be like, well, if this happened, then there probably wouldn't be a video. You know what I mean? This whole matchup is not a video. It isn't. I mean, it is. It can be. Everything is like, right? But this matchup is not a video. It's not. We all know, like, could Iron Man survive Magneto? Could Iron Man survive Magneto? Hell no. Granted, Iron Man probably does have some metalless suits. I think Magneto just destroys Iron Man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you haven't already. Could Iron Man survive Magneto? Bro was cooked. Bro was cooked. I don't see Iron Man surviving Magneto. I mean, it's hilarious that he puts Iron Man against Darkseid, and now he like puts Iron Man against Magneto. It's like, why are you doing this? Let's check this out, dude.
The suit locks up at 400 feet. Not a glitch. Every servo seizes.
There's the video. That's the end of it right there. That's the end of the video. He said his suit started to lock up. That's the end of the video. All right, he's just gonna get crushed in the suit.
At once, like something outside the armor just decided it was done moving. The chest plate presses inward. The visor cracks from the outside in. Tony's not falling yet. He's about to be. He built armor against bullets, against gods, against a vacuum of space. He's got dead man switches seated in orbit he can barely remember the launch codes to. He never built anything against this. And here's the question everyone gets wrong about this fight. It isn't whether Tony's smart enough. He is. It's whether smart enough means anything when you're a tin can in the hands of a man who treats the laws of physics like a polite suggestion. We're running it build by build, feet by feet, rated F through S for survival. Let's find out. Chapter 1, The Fatal Attraction. Tony goes in wearing the Model Prime, Model 51. His everything suit, the one that folds every armor he's ever built into a single frame. Repulsors rated around 3.2 gigajoules a blast. He's taken it through worse than a containment job over a coastal city, so he doesn't think twice. Quick thing the fandom gets wrong before we go further, because it changes how you watch the next 30 seconds. Iron Man versus Magneto sounds like the shortest fight in comics.
It
Guy made of
does.
iron, guy who controls iron, roll credits. Except Model Prime is mostly gold titanium, and titanium barely answers a magnet at all. So if you think this is over because Tony...
Even if Iron Man does not have metal on his suit, even if Magneto would still destroy, all Magneto has to do is coat his suit. Magneto is so broken, he could put anything metal on Iron Man and have it go through his entire suit and then act as if, you know what I mean, his suit is made of metal. You know what I mean? So Magneto is just broken, bro. Like, you know, nerd science, he has his views and his points and stuff like that, but I really do think this fight is devastation, like, for Iron Man. Like, there's just no way. You know what I mean? There's just no way.
Tony's wearing metal, you got the right answer for the wrong question. The real reason is uglier. Magneto is standing on nothing, 600 feet up, wearing that helmet like he's bored. He doesn't throw a punch. He doesn't fire anything. He just looks, and the suit answers. Because the thing people forget is that an Iron Man armor isn't a lump of metal. It's an electromagnetic machine. Currents, capacitors, a live reactor, ferrous bolts holding the whole orchestra together. Magneto doesn't need it to be iron. He just needs it to be electric. And every electric thing in the sky is his home field. The repulsors go first. The palm units wrench sideways before they can fire. Then the shoulder mounts crumple inward. Then the chest plate peels from the inside out, support struts folding like he's crushing a soda can in his fist. You want the canon version of what this looks like? Go read X-Men number 25, Fatal Attractions, 1993.
That's a badass comic cover, dude.
This looks
Look
like,
at that.
go read X-Men number 25, Fatal Attractions, 1993, where Magneto finally gets fed up and rips the entire adamantium skeleton out of Wolverine's body. Calm as a man unscrewing a jar, and adamantium is supposed to be unbreakable. He peeled it off the bone anyway. A gold titanium flight suit doesn't even rate. Tony hits the emergency eject on a cracked booster. One arm already broken where the forearm plate collapsed around it. He clears the debris going sideways, bleeding above the left eye, and watches a fortune in engineering get wadded into something the size of a volleyball. Magneto doesn't even look at it when it drops. Survival tier F. Not because Tony fought badly, because a metal suit against the master of magnetism isn't armor. It's ammunition you brought for him. Tony hits a rooftop, and he's already running numbers. Chapter 2. The Carbon Gambit and the Ghost Suit. 18 hours in Stark Field Lab. Coffee, a splinted
Somehow
arm,
he gets away.
a taped eyebrow, and the specific kind of focus that only comes from watching your best work turn into a stress ball. None of the injuries matter right now. The materials list matters. He pulls every non-ferromagnetic concept he's ever shelved, and there are a lot of them, because Tony Stark does not stop designing just because a design isn't useful yet. He even pulls up the Endosim armor from his superior Iron Man days, that liquid smart metal suit he grew out of symbiote biology and ran on pure thought. Then he closes the file fast. Liquid smart metal is the single dumbest thing you could bring to a Magneto fight. He'd puppet it like a glove. So, carbon fiber over a ceramic skeleton, polymer joints, non-conductive wiring. No iron, no steel, no nickel. Materials whose electrons don't line up when a field hits them. That alignment is the whole reason a fridge magnet grabs steel and ignores plastic. Magneto can grip what won't align. For about 90 seconds, it works. He reaches for the suit and gets nothing. There's a flicker on his face that's almost surprise. Tony presses it, lands 2 repulsor bursts through polymer-lined emitters. Scored real hits. I love this beat. It's the only stretch of the whole fight where Tony's actually driving. Then Magneto stops gripping and starts pushing. Here's the catch nobody remembers. Carbon fiber conducts. It's not a metal, but it carries current just fine. Move a magnetic field across it fast enough, and you induce circulating currents inside the material itself. And those currents become the handle Magneto never had to grab. He flings Tony sideways near 90 miles an hour, straight through the glass face of a tower. Tier C. Alive, mostly unbroken. That's the entire complement. So, Tony strips further. Pure ceramic and polymer, a ghost. No conductivity to push on, no signature to track. Basically, a very expensive flying mannequin. Magneto loses him for 40 seconds, and you can tell, because he actually has to turn his head and look. First real win of the night. Then Magneto stops hunting the suit and reaches straight through it for Tony. Now, slow down with me, because this is the one everybody quotes and most people get backwards. The movies love it. Magneto rips the iron out of a man's blood. X2, the guard, the whole bit. Problem is, the iron in your blood isn't the kind a magnet grabs. It's locked inside protein, barely magnetic at all. It's literally the reason an MRI doesn't turn you inside out. The comics have reached for the blood trick since the 70s, and it's always been the shakiest move he's got. So, he doesn't do that. He does something worse and more real. He reaches for the electrical signals Tony's heart and nerves actually run on, and he scrambles the rhythm. Tony's pulse stutters, his vision strobes. The ghost suit means nothing because the suit was never the target. Tier C. The armor's invisible. The man inside it isn't. Chapter 3. The Counterfield Gambit. 4 hours flat on the lab floor before the suit's AI wakes him up. The scramble.
Bros had already 2 fights with Magneto and came back on his ass. How many suits has Iron Man just had to use? Like, you know what I mean? It's over. This was always gonna be an uphill losing battle for Iron Man.
Microbleeds in 3 separate muscle groups, and his hands won't stop shaking. He doesn't treat that as a medical problem. He treats it as a design spec. The target was never the suit. It was him. So this build isn't about the shell. It's about what's wrapped around his body underneath it. Tony weaves an electromagnetic insulation layer into the lining, a mesh of finely tuned coils on their own microreactor, throwing a counter-oscillating field that wraps him like a second skin. The principle is the dull, beautiful one inside every noise-canceling headphone. 2 opposite waves at the same frequency cancel out to nothing. If the suit can read Magneto's frequency and mirror it back inverted, it carves a dead zone around Tony's body where there's nothing left to push on. Silence, magnetically speaking. It's the same prep god instinct people love about Tony. The guy who builds
that's kind of badass. Look at that. Look at the armor, the shoulder pads on it.
People love about Tony. The guy who builds
crazy.
the answer instead of waiting for one. Real talk, though. The last time he built a from-scratch superweapon against a cosmic tier threat, it was the Phoenix Killer in Avengers vs. X-Men.
These were the last comics that I've read. The Avengers vs. X-Men comics were fire, dude.
And it didn't kill the Phoenix. It shattered it into 5 hosts who promptly conquered the planet. His genius is real. So is his habit, swinging so hard he makes the problem worse. Hold that thought. He goes back in. And it works. Magneto reaches for the heart rhythm trick and hits a wall. He tries to grab the coil mesh directly and can't, because Tony's cycling the frequency every 1.3 seconds, keeping the target moving. And Magneto's face does something Tony has never seen it do. Not anger, recalibration. The man is actually thinking. Tony presses harder than he should. He reconfigures the repulsors to fire focused electromagnetic pulses instead of raw energy. White noise to scramble Magneto's field coherence. The first clips him. The second lands clean. And for 1 full second, the whole block stops warping. Windows go still. A water tower uncrumples. Scaffolding 3 streets over drops out of the air. Magneto's knee dips, and Tony thinks, I've got him. Okay, I know exactly what this looks like right now. Underdog finds the trick, lands the big hit. You can feel the music swelling toward the upset. I would genuinely love for that to be where this goes. It isn't, and here's why. Magneto was never at full power. He was studying. Every frequency Tony cycled, every counter he threw, Magneto was reading it the way Tony reads a schematic, learning the pattern under the noise. He lets the stagger land. He lets Tony feel it. Then he inverts Tony's own oscillation back through the coil mesh, and the dead zone collapses inward. Tony's defense becomes the amplifier. The suit seizes harder than the Model Prime ever did. He hits the ground at terminal velocity. The crater is 4 feet deep. Tier B. He outscienced one of the most powerful mutants alive. Magneto just waited for the science to finish and picked it up off the floor. Chapter 4. The Omega Problem. Magneto doesn't follow up. He lets Tony climb out of the crater, lets him burn 20 minutes rerouting power from dead systems just to stand. Then he stops holding back. The sky goes wrong first. A band of green-white light tears across the horizon at noon. Aurora over a coastal city in broad daylight, and every compass within 200 miles spins useless. Tony's instruments say the local geomagnetic flux just spiked by an order of magnitude that shouldn't be survivable this close. Magneto isn't using his own body as the source anymore. He's reached down into the Earth's own magnetic field and started turning it. This is the Planet X version of him. The new X-Men arc, where juiced on a power-boosting drug called Kick, he sets out to reverse the planet's magnetic poles. And here's the honest footnote the comic itself fumbled. A flipped magnetic field doesn't vaporize anyone on contact. The real horror is slower. Strip the magnetosphere and you hand the surface over to solar radiation. And life up here gets a generation tops. Tony knows the slow version is the one that actually ends the world. And he cannot counterfield a planet. Microreactor at 4% power. One dead arm from the crater, targeting flickering states every 3 seconds. One move left, and it isn't a weapon. Remember the switches in orbit? 3 months back, long before he had any idea this fight was coming, Tony seeded a contingency into a Stark satellite array. The kinda half-forgotten dead man switch he scatters for every doomsday he can think of. It was never built for Magneto. It was built to trip on any geomagnetic anomaly that crossed a threshold and disperse it. It doesn't fight Magneto, it just scatters the polar draw before it can focus. It makes the Earth too big to aim at. He fires the trigger by hand. 4 seconds of nothing. Then the aurora fractures. The polar pull breaks into a dozen weak threads, none of them focused. And Magneto's expression goes flat in a way that's worse than rage. He drops back to local power. 3 states over, compasses find north again. Magneto walks toward him through the floating debris like he's heading out for coffee. Tony goes to one knee. Not surrender. His legs just quit. The last working repulsor auto-charges. Lock confirmed. He keeps it pointed forward as the distance closes and fires it at 12 feet. Full charge. Everything left. Magneto catches it. Not deflects. Catches. Holds it as a sphere of redirected energy for 2 full seconds. Then sets it into the ground 6 feet from Tony's left. A car-sized crater, a deliberate miss. A correction, not a kill. And that's the tell. This is the part the loud version of the character always flattens. Magneto is a cackling murder magnet. The comics that actually understand him know he's a zealot with a code. A man who reserves something like respect for the rare opponent who makes him work for it. He doesn't kill Tony. He walks, because Tony is the one human in the sky who forced him to think.
Iron Man being Iron Man definitely gains the Iron Man immediately has the respect of so many high-powered beings. Avengers Endgame, the way Iron Man was fighting Thanos is like, dude, you're a human.
You throw another moon at me, and I'm gonna lose it. All that for a drop of blood? You have my respect, Stark.
But respect. Magneto definitely have some sort of respect for Iron Man. If Iron Man ever was able to remotely even do anything to Magneto, you know what I mean? But
Tony pulls his own helmet off before it can press any further against his skull. Blood dried down the left side of his face and looks up. Magneto says nothing. He turns, rises, and the sky swallows him. Survival tier S. Conditional. Tony lives. But the condition is the whole story. Magneto let him. He fought through a crushed flagship suit, a carbon gambit, a ceramic ghost, a counterfield, and a satellite Hail Mary, and at the end, the master of magnetism simply chose to walk away. That's not a win. And that distinction matters more than the letter grade. Back in the lab, Tony doesn't open a new design file. He just sits there. F, C, B, S conditional. 4 grades. 1 answer wearing 4 masks. You can get closer. Closer was never the same as safe. Every suit he built stripped one weakness and exposed a deeper one. Until the only thing standing between Tony Stark and a 4-foot grave was his opponent's restraint. So here's a real question, and I actually want your answer. What suit would you build if you knew Magneto was coming for you? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see who survives the next one.
You gotta make like a wood suit or something, like some type of wood suit or liquid, like I'm probably not liquid, but it's bad because no matter what, Magneto's so broken in that way of being able to just put a little tiny piece of metal inside of you, and then he could just have it like go through your whole entire body, or like he could control your body from from placing, you know, small bits of metal inside of you or whatever. Like there's so many ways he can get creative with using his abilities, and there's almost no limits to it. Yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you haven't already. Could Iron Man survive Magneto? Hell no. But at the same time, yes, because Magneto has some morals, you know what I mean? So he's not just gonna kill, you know, just to do it. But for the most part, Iron Man is cooked, right? Is cooked. But that was a good one.